In this segment, you'll learn how to build a Synflex high-pressure hose assembly. Before beginning, be sure you're familiar with the operating instructions for your particular system. Always wear safety glasses, avoid jewelry, and be aware of any loose-fitting clothing when operating the machine. To build a Synflex high-pressure hose assembly, you'll need Synflex 3V10 or 3VEO hose, the proper hose fittings, and the assembly kit, including appropriate safety guards and warning tags, crimp tool and dies, a hose cutter, the appropriate pushers, and a swage die. For complete assembly instructions, including the appropriate fittings, pushers, and dies, please reference current Synflex assembly instructions. First, measure the hose to the proper length. The overall length of the hose assembly includes the hose ends. This additional length is called the cutoff factor and must be accounted for when cutting the hose. The cutoff factors for various hose ends are found in the Synflex high-pressure hose assembly instructions. Use a non-abrasive cutting tool to cut the hose. Make sure the cut is both square and clean. Do not use an abrasive cutting tool, as this will contaminate the inside of the hose. Next, mark the insertion depth for the fitting using the information listed in the assembly instructions. For operator safety, every Synflex high-pressure hose assembly must have a warning tag installed. Slide the proper tag over the hose end. Note that black and orange cover hoses have different tags with different part numbers. See the assembly instructions for the proper part numbers for each tag. Next, slide the guard over the hose. Lubricate the inner surface of the hose with a lubricant compatible with the hose application. Push the hose into the fitting until it reaches the mark. Determine the proper swage die from the assembly instructions. Select the proper swage die by locating the part numbers on the top and the serial numbers on the bottom of the dies. Each die set is mating halves. Be sure the serial numbers are the same. Install the die into the swage machine and lock in place with the die detent pins. Lubricate the inside of the swage dies with SAE 90 or Anchor Lube part number 4545-01001 for stainless steel. Use the assembly instructions to select the proper pusher and lock it in place. Turn the machine on and insert the hose up through the die and into the pusher, holding it there while the swage is being made. Pull the control lever to the down position, guiding the fitting into the swage die and holding it there until the pusher bottoms out against the die. When the swage is completed, push the control lever to the up position and withdraw the assembly. Inspect the hose for abnormalities such as fitting collapse or an overly wide die parting line. Then inspect the swage diameter at two locations. First at the die parting line and then again at 90 degrees from the die. Average these two measurements to determine the final diameter. Next, check the bell length or the distance from the rear of the hex to the end of the bell. Push the guard over the fitting until the brass ring is even with the hex on the fitting. Now it's time to crimp the hose guard retainer ferrule on the assembly to the diameter specified in the hose assembly instructions. Any hose crimping machine capable of delivering the required crimp diameter can be used. As an alternative, the swage machine can also be used. To do this, remove the current die, pusher, and the die holding fingers. Refer to the hose assembly instructions to select the die base needed to crimp the retaining ferrule of the protective guard. Insert the die base into the swage machine so that the ring on the bottom of the base settles into the base plate on the machine. Now, select the crimp dies required for the hose size being assembled. Be sure to arrange the crimp dies so they are even. Select the proper pusher plate and insert for the hose guard from the hose assembly instructions. Install and lock the insert with the flange side down. Place the pusher plate and insert over the crimp dies in the base plate. Lock the proper pusher into the machine. Then insert the hose assembly up through the die base with the guard in place, allowing the hex to enter the insert. When you feel the guard assembly making contact with the pusher plate, pull the control lever to the down position and bottom the pusher plate against the die base. After the ferrule has been crimped, push the control lever to the up position. Remove the hose and inspect the assembly for any abnormalities. Referring to the chart in the assembly instructions, check the crimp diameter, making sure to do so in several locations around the guard. Check for proper bell length dimension. Then, repeat the entire process for the other end of the hose. The completed assembly must be proof tested at 2 times working pressure for 5 minutes with no leaks or abnormal appearance. For additional information on Synflex high-pressure hose assemblies or help with specific questions, refer to the current published assembly instructions or contact Eaton Technical Support.